Less than 2 decades after being founded, the fledgling colony had begun to fall apart. Its population dwindling, drunkenness on the rise, and morale at an all-time low.
The most interesting thing about the Dutch period in New York to me is how much it set the pattern for behavior in New York. I forget what the exact ratio is, but there was an absurd ratio of citizens to taverns. It was virtually that every 20 guys had their own tavern. And it remains a ratio that's probably pretty close to the way the city has remained throughout its history.
It's like Dodge City. I mean, every other building is a bar, it's a mud hole, the sinkhole, the fort is falling down, pigs are rooting in the foundations. We need to shake this place up. And what they do is they, like a global corporation that they were, you can sort of think of the West India Company as sort of like Exxon with guns, I mean, with its own naval fleet. They transferred a branch manager from Curacao up to New York and said, "We want you to whip this place into shape." And he did.
In the spring of 1647, New Amsterdam got a new director general, a 37-year-old ex-soldier and minister's son, who had lost his right leg to a cannonball during a naval battle in the West Indies. Iron-willed, short-tempered, and puritanical, Peter Stuyvesant had strict orders to clean the place up and make it pay. "I shall govern you as a father his children," he told the stubborn and unruly citizens of New Amsterdam. And it was soon apparent he meant every word he said. Within weeks of his arrival, he had banned drinking on Sundays, outlawed knife fighting in public, and imposed stiff fines for missing church, speeding on Broadway, and fornicating with the Indians. It was the beginning of a long and stormy relationship between the Director General and his colonists. But though they bitterly resented Stuyvesant's high-handed style of rule, New Amsterdam began to take hold.
In an incredibly short space of time, he has slaves lay out the road up to Harlem, gets a wall built, has streets built, has the port fixed up, builds himself an extremely nice house, takes a large chunk of the slave population for himself, but in fact makes this place into a functioning operation. The population increases. He establishes a base, an economic base, which is slaving. This is going to be a slave entrepot, and they're going to run slaves into here and then down to the Caribbean.
By 1653, in less than 5 years, Stuyvesant had managed to transform the disorderly backwater into a bustling town, with its own piers, canals, windmills, and schools, 300 row houses, a population of 3,000, and a 2,340-foot wall, stretching all the way from the East River to the Hudson, built to keep out hostile Indians and the English.
So many things about New York that we think of as being unusual or distinctive in the 20th century really have their origins hundreds of years in the past. One thinks of congestion. Every American, every person in the world really knows about New York and its unusual vertical shape and the crowded streets. But again, this goes back to the 17th century, really, when the little Dutch village was crowded down in Lower Manhattan and all the houses were flush up against each other. Or the heterogeneity of the population. Already in the 1640s, there were 18 different languages being spoken on the streets.